there was still, even in a negative capacity, there's still work that has to be put in. So why don't you think it's going to be the same for you? You shouldn't be sitting back looking at people and being upset at what they have and what they're doing. No, in order for you to have what it is you are supposed to have, you have to become who you are supposed to be and do what it is that you are supposed to do. Once again, don't be mad, get busy. Don't get mad, get busy. Because hey, what's going on, family? Welcome back to the podcast. I pray that all of you guys are doing well on this week. It is always a pleasure and an honor to just chop it up with you guys here on the In the Word podcast. I've had a great experience doing this podcast, just interacting with all of you guys, all of the comments, the conversations that I've had with some of you. I just want to say I truly do appreciate you guys always for tuning in. Listen, if you follow the podcast, we've been talking a lot about purpose. If you attend the church that I attend and you come to some of the Bible studies that I've taught, lately I've been talking a lot about purpose, and not from a standpoint of, just trying to rile people up and God, get ready. It's your season. It's your time to go forward. None of that, but like real serious talks about where are you in doing the work that God has placed you here to do and the importance of finishing that work. And, we've been really, honing in on that for the last few months because I think it's important that we get these things done. And I'm not going to go over everything that I've talked about in the last couple of months, but one thing that we touched on is that, when you're walking in your purpose, you're doing the thing that is deep down inside you, the thing that you should be doing or that God has called you to do. It brings a different joy, peace, and all of those types of different things in your life. A lot of times you'll have people, they'll be on their jobs or they'll have a job and they'll say, oh, I need to make more money. I'm not happy because I'm not making more money. But then they may get another position or another job and make more money. And then that same thing pops up in their life. Maybe 6 months later, a year later, they're back to, oh, I need more money. But sometimes it's just that they're not really walking in the thing that God has created them to do, because when you do that, it brings a contentment. That doesn't mean that, you're not going to be able to make more money or have a career or whatever have you, but it brings a different type of joy and peace in your life. It brings about it brings you to a place where, you're not constantly stressing things, right? You're at ease at what it is that God has called you to do, because now that you're flowing in the thing that you're meant to flow in, all of these other things that bothered you, they don't bother you as much. So we talked a lot about that. And the importance of walking in that purpose, and not only walking in it, but finishing it. Because when we look in the scriptures, we look at Jesus, we look at Paul. Paul talked about how important it was to finish his course. And we see in Timothy, he talked about finishing his course. We see where Jesus constantly was talking about to the disciples about how the Father has sent him to do a work that he must finish. And we see on the cross, he says, what? It is finished. So we talked a lot about that. But another thing that we talked about that I feel is very important is that we talked about the importance of being you, right? Of not trying to be somebody else. And there's something that I want to talk about in a second, but I just wanted to highlight some of these things that I see sometimes in people and that we have to have an honest conversation about. And for some of you, it's going to be a little uncomfortable. But before we get to that, we talked about the importance of being who you are, right? Not trying to be somebody else. Like, there's only one you. A couple of the quotes that we quoted in some of our podcast episodes. One was, be yourself. Everyone else is taken, right? You can't be anybody else. You have to be yourself. And guess what? You are equipped to be your best self, right? Nobody can't be you and you can't be anybody else. And another quote that we quoted was, to be yourself in a world, and this was powerful. I love this quote. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. Anytime you can be yourself, especially in a world like today where, we have a lot of social media influence, we have on the job influence, we got family influence. There's always something trying to tell us to be something different than who we are, to do something different than what we're doing. And if you can stand 10 toes down on who it is you are and the thing that you're doing, minus, how popular something looks like, that somebody else is doing, maybe what they're doing, maybe you guys are in the same, like for instance, for me, I'm in ministry, I might can look out and see another preacher, minister doing something that seems successful. Maybe they have a lot of people, or maybe they're on the internet, they have a lot of followers and subscribers. But guess what? I can't allow that to cause me now to be different than who I'm supposed to be, to do what it is I'm doing the way that God has told me to do it, all because of what I see with my eyes, right? No, I have to be me. If God has called me only to shepherd and encourage 100 people, 10 people, then that's what I have to do, right? That's what I need to do. And I need to do that to the best of my ability. And sometimes what happens is people see numbers, they see followings, they see figures, on the money side, and they think, listen, that person must be successful. But sometimes, those individuals, one, could be just doing something totally opposite than what God has called them to do, and it appears successful, or that's what they have been called to do and to handle, right? So it is very important that you be yourself, that you don't allow anything that's going on around you to encourage you to be anybody other than yourself. And another thing we talked about, before I get to what I really want to touch on, we talked about, having a double mind, right? James chapter 1 and verse 8 says, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And if you joined us on our previous podcast episodes, I talked about where I was watching a podcast where they were talking about, this is why people go psycho. This is why people go crazy. And why do they go psycho? Why do they go crazy? Because they want one result, but they find themselves doing something else, right? You can't be doing one thing, but you want something else. The thing that you're doing, like I use it for an example, I use losing weight, right? You can't say, oh, I want to lose weight, but yet you're still eating all the things that is going to prevent you from losing weight, right? Or you're not exercising, right? And guess what? That will drive you crazy, right? Because now when it's time to go somewhere, some type of event, now you're stressing, you're upset because you don't feel like you look good in your clothes, but if we be honest about it, it was all because of what it was that you were doing, right? So here you are driving yourself crazy because of your decisions, right? Because the thing that you're doing is not going to reap the results that you would like. And a lot of times when you have a double mind like that, it will drive you crazy. And when we look at double-minded, it's the lack of commitment or consistency in one's thoughts, beliefs, and actions. A double-minded, and this is on the spiritual level here, a double-minded believer may claim to follow God, but struggle to fully surrender their life to Him. So when you look at it, it refers to a lack of commitment in your consistency in your thoughts, your beliefs, and in your actions. And we went over that. We really dug into that on some of our previous podcasts. And like I said, I didn't really want to, really dive back into that again today, because it was something else that I really want to touch on that I think is very dangerous and could be very cancerous. But I wanted to highlight some of these things that we talked about. And we talked about a whole bunch of other things, like some of the obstacles we face striving to fulfill our purpose, and some of the things that we can do to get by those obstacles and fulfill our purpose. But what I really wanted to talk about today is a lot of times when you hear people talk, let's use this for an example, especially on the internet, right? If you're somebody like me, and when you're watching videos on the internet, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, some platforms I'm not on much, like I'm not on Facebook a whole lot, I'm not on Instagram a whole lot, or even TikTok. Like I'll go up there and I'll post some stuff once in a while. I may scroll around and watch some videos, but more than likely, I'm more on YouTube than anything, watching videos and stuff. And whether I'm on any of those platforms, when you start to read in the comments, even in some of my own comments, I'm just surprised at, some of the things that people say. And it's almost like there's a hatred towards other individuals that are accomplishing things, right? And that's why I wanted to talk to you guys today about being very careful about being jealous of what somebody else is doing, right? And my message to you today on this podcast is don't get mad, get busy, right? Because no matter who it is you see accomplishing something, I just told you earlier, we don't know how they're accomplishing what they're accomplishing. We don't even know if they're in God's will or how they're doing it, right? You may look at somebody and feel like, oh, they seem to have so much money. They're driving this and driving that. They could be con artists, right? They could be the next person we see on American Greed. And that's why we have to be who we are supposed to be, right? We have to look in that mirror and say what it is that I can do better instead of looking at somebody else's life and saying, listen, I can't stand them for what they're doing, or either we're watching their life, because it doesn't have to be online. It could be a neighbor, it could be a coworker, where we're just watching what they're doing, and every little thing that they're doing, we're picking it apart. We got something nasty to say about it. And sometimes that could be some hidden things down in our own heart. One thing about envy, one thing about jealousy, those are things that are hidden that can't be seen on the external. And I wanted to encourage you guys, you don't have to be that way, right? You don't have to be that way. All you have to do is get busy. All you have to do is do what it is that God has created you to do. Plant those seeds. And I guarantee you, if you do that, once again, you will begin to get that joy and that peace in your own life. And then you'll be able to look up and you'll see people, upset with you. And then you'll have the understanding like, why are you guys upset with me? All I'm doing is doing what I'm supposed to do, right? And it's very important that we understand that. But listen to the definition of jealousy, right? Because it really ties in to this thing that we've been talking about, this whole, fulfilling your purpose. It says jealousy is feeling resentment against someone because of that person's success or advantages, right? But once again, we don't know how this person is succeeding. Yes, it is a possibility that they are doing all the things that they need to do right. But guess what they're doing? They're doing, right? They're being, they're doing and they're having. We talked about that when it comes to purpose, right? When you become who you are supposed to become, you'll do what it is that you're supposed to do, and you'll have what it is that you are supposed to have. And that works in the spiritual as well as the natural, right? Because guess what? No matter what it is that you're going to accomplish here on this earth, it's going to take work. It's going to take a lot of work, right? There's going to be obstacles. There's going to be things that you are going to face, and you just have to face them. You have to get busy and get doing them. Even somebody that's succeeding, let's say that they're a con artist, right? Let's say that they're a false preacher, right? Getting over on the congregation. Let's say that they're a type of person that's out in the world, like an American Greed person that has a Ponzi scheme and getting over on the people. Even in those areas, it takes work. They're still busy doing something. Eventually, they're going to be found out. Eventually, God is going to deal with them. But even in that, even in doing wrong, you have to put in work. When I was young, I sold drugs. I ran the streets. Guess what? The drugs had to be bagged. They had to be this. They had to be put out on the street, all of that. And I'm not glorifying that. That was a terrible way to live. And that's why I went to jail. That's why I went through some of the things that I went through when I shared my testimony with you guys. But guess what? There was still, even in a negative capacity, there's still work that has to be put in. So why don't you think it's going to be the same for you? You shouldn't be sitting back looking at people and being upset at what they have and what they're doing. No, in order for you to have what it is you are supposed to have, you have to become who you are supposed to be and do what it is that you are supposed to do. Once again, don't be mad, get busy. Don't get mad, get busy. Because once you get busy, once you put your hands to something, you will start to see those seeds that you're planting. You'll start to see you reaping that harvest. And I'm not talking about money, right? Money may play a part into it, but I'm talking about joy. I'm talking about peace. I'm talking about, spiritual strength. We're not just talking about physical things here. Yes, some of those things may manifest themselves in you doing what it is that you're supposed to do. But if you're just sitting around chilling, then guess what? You're going to have what it is that you are supposed to have. And guess what? There are some people that they're comfortable in just chilling, right? There's some people that made up in their mind, listen, it's not that serious. I'm okay with being poor spiritually. I'm okay with being poor naturally, right? Because it works the same way in the spiritual and the natural. If you don't plant seeds in the spiritual, meaning if you don't pray, right? If you don't read your word, right? If you don't fast at times, guess what? You're not going to become spiritually wealthy. You're not going to become spiritually strong. And we're not talking about no spooky, weird, and goosey bumped stuff like, people like, oh, I just got goosebumps, they be in the service. We're not talking about that. We're talking about spiritual strength where you are in tune with God, where you hear clearly from God. When God says yes, when God says no, when God says stop, when God says go, that's what I'm talking about, right? Being spiritually mature. That's what wealth is. Having the Holy Spirit down on the inside and God confirming that, right? Sealing that, and you knowing that you are making your calling and election sure, that you are heading on the path or on the road to eternal life with the Lord. That's what I mean by spiritual wealth. But then when you look in the natural, it's the same way, right? Like seeds have to be planted. And I'm not talking about seeds being planted from a standpoint of a preacher like Jesus said it's better to give than receive. He absolutely did. And guess what? That scripture is absolutely true. But some of these individuals be using it to get over. No, I'm talking about planting the seeds, whatever it is that you need to be doing to build up, that wealth or build up some type of money, whether that's investing, whether that's you working at your job, whether that's you working on your business, whatever it is that you feel that you should be doing. And I'll give you an example, right? I was listening to the Secret to Success podcast with Eric Thomas and CJ and some of the brothers on there. And it's a good podcast, man. They chop it up about a lot of different things on there. And I was listening to the podcast, and that was actually the podcast where they were talking about this is why people go psycho. This is why people go crazy when they were talking about, double-mindedness, right? But I'm listening to the podcast, and for those of you that don't know, I've been driving like as a career. I've been driving for probably like the last maybe 20 years, right? Whether that's box trucks for companies, vans for companies. In 2016, I left the last job I had and pretty much, just started doing independent contract work, whether that's through the apps, the Uber Eats, the Walmarts, the Amazons, all of these different things, right? And guess what? At times and in different seasons, those apps were good. But if any of you out there use any of these apps to drive or work, you know that when they come to a place of oversaturation, it is hard to make money on it. But I'm listening to the podcast, and this is the way that I'm making my money. I have multiple, apps open, and some of these I still use. I have multiple apps that I can use to make money. But I remember Eric Thomas, Pastor Thomas, he said something that was really key and it really hit me. They were talking about entrepreneurship, and they were saying how being an entrepreneur, because when I look at myself, I pretty much worked for myself the last few years, however I had to do it, whether it's getting contracts on my own, or mainly just working through the apps. And he said, when it comes to entrepreneurship, you got to be proactive, right? Like when you just sitting and kind of waiting for things to happen for you, that's not necessarily entrepreneurship. And if you know how the apps work and all of these different various ways to drive, that's what you're kind of doing. And not to say that there aren't good days or there weren't good seasons where I made good money on these apps, but you literally are just sitting there waiting for something to come for you to make money. And I was like, man, for one, like for this year, it's been tough on me when it comes to, that particular area of my life, like driving and using some of these apps. So I said, when I heard that, I said, you know what? I really got to get proactive. And it's something that was in my heart for a long time. And that was to start my own transport business, right? Because I said, listen, if I can start my own transport business, now I can start to, deal with people, one-on-one, go straight to the source instead of dealing with a middleman. Now I can get my own contracts in areas that are not oversaturated. So by the grace of God, about a month ago, I started and now I'm working on getting a van, but that really hit my heart, right? Because even though there were seasons that I did well and I was doing okay, not necessarily this year so much, but it was like, listen, I felt I was, doing well and kind of doing my own thing, being my own boss, but I wasn't really being as proactive as I thought I was, right? I wasn't really the entrepreneur that I thought I was. Yes, I do stuff here on the internet. And yes, YouTube, they allow you to monetize. But, for me, I don't make a lot of money off of YouTube, right? I don't have a whole lot of views like that on my YouTube channel, on my podcast to say, listen, this is all I'm going to do for now. I would love to do that. And one day I pray that could be a possibility. But guess what? It's not one now. So, outside of this, that is what I do. I drive, right? I've been doing that forever. So why not drive for myself? But that really hit me. And the reason why I shared that story is because that's what I'm saying today, right? And it wasn't like I was looking at other people with their own businesses being mad or none of that. But I'm saying to those of you out there that you have been sitting back and looking at what other people have been doing, and you're envious and you're upset, you're bad mouthing. Listen, don't get mad, get busy, right? I was just being more idle, being more passive, I should say, on how I was, going after the money that I needed to go after, or to work and feed my family, and so on and so forth. I was being passive. And Pastor Thomas said that, I said, man, I got to be more proactive, right? I got to get busier. I got to plant more seeds. I got to go out and get it, instead of kind of sitting back and waiting for it. And maybe some of you fall in that category. Maybe you're not being envious or mad or jealous of somebody else. Maybe you're just chilling on the couch, right? Maybe every show that come on, you're watching the show, you're watching all the series, all the movies and all that. Listen, you have to stop that, because what you put in is what you're going to get out. What you put in is what you are going to have. But I want to share these two scriptures with you guys before I hop off the podcast. But I hope this is helping somebody. I want to be transparent with you guys as well. Like, there are times, even here, right? Even here with the podcast, but mainly with YouTube, right? I started my YouTube channel almost a year or so after YouTube started. That's almost been, I don't know, 15 to 20 years now, maybe like 16 years or whatever. I was on YouTube early. But guess what? It wasn't until maybe 4 years ago that I've been consistent like this. Why? Just being passive, right? And now when I look back, I feel bad, because I was kind of here at its inception and could have really, encouraged a lot of people from back then until now. But guess what? I dropped the ball on that. So I'm being transparent with you guys, letting you know, listen, it's not a foreign thing, right? To be passive and sit back, or to be jealous or envious of somebody, right? No, but you got to get busy. The life that you want for yourself, you have to go out there and create it, right? You have to plant those seeds. But I want to read these two scriptures to you guys. Listen, Proverbs chapter 21 and verse 5. The thoughts of the diligent. Now, the word thoughts there means the ideas, right? Some of you like, oh, I got plenty of ideas, right? But listen to what it says. It says the thoughts, the ideas of the diligent. That's the key word there. The ideals of the diligent, not the ideas of everybody, the ideas of the diligent, because if you're not diligent, it's just going to be an idea, right? But listen to the definition of diligent. Constant in effort to accomplish something, right? So you have to constantly be planting seeds. It's like that compound interest. If you keep putting in and putting in and putting in, whether that's negative or positive, you are going to get something out of it. That's just the way God made it. But it's constant in effort to accomplish something, attentive and persistent in doing anything, right? What did I just say? It says, done or pursued with persevering attention. You have to have persevering attention. You have to keep your mind and focus on that thing that it is you are supposed to do, because distractions are going to come. Things are going to happen and try to get you to give up, or to quit, or to say, not today. I'll give you a prime example. This podcast that I'm recording, I am not recording the normal way that I usually record. Why? My internet went down last night out of nowhere. I called Frontier this morning. You know what they tell me? We may not be able to get anybody out. Matter of fact, not made out. They scheduled an appointment for me for Monday the 9th. Monday the 9th. This is days away. I use my computer for many different things, not only for what it is I'm doing now, but for other things as well. Like, I need my internet. They said, oh, we'll flag you as important, and maybe somebody will give up their appointment or call and cancel, and we can get somebody out to you, but it's not definite. So guess what? Guess what I said to myself at first? I said, well, man, if I can't record, because I normally record through the internet, I use something called Zencaster to record my audio, but I can't go on the internet. So the first thing was, well, you know what? I'll just record it another time. It's not my fault. I'll just go and maybe work or whatever have you. But then something hit me like, no, I have another way to record. I have a H4 and Zoom recorder that I had bought a couple years back that I used to record audio into. Haven't used it in a while, but I said, listen, no excuses. Get that podcast recorded. Even if I can't upload it, at least I know that I did everything I could to make it happen. At least I know that I'll have it recorded. So what did I do? I went and dusted off my H4n Zoom. I had to go back online and watch a couple videos just to kind of remind myself. And here I am recording. And this is the thing that I had to learn some years ago. Like, there's no excuses, right? And we talked about that when we talked about purpose and some of the obstacles. One of the main obstacles we use is when things that pop up and give us an excuse. Oh, I worked all day today. Well, listen. Understand, if you work a 9 to 5, your real job starts at 5:01. Whatever it is you were born to do, it's gonna, if you can't do it, while you're at work, or you can't do it without having a job, then it starts after you get off of work, right? So I wanted to share that, right? There's no excuses. I mean, my flesh wanted to be like, oh, well, man, we'll just have to do it another time. But it's like, no. This is what I said God has called me to do. This is what I've been doing, so I have to do it by any means necessary. No internet, with the internet, however it has to go down. Now, when it comes to uploading it, if I can't find another way to do that, that's out of my power, but at least I did what I could. And that's a word for somebody out there. Do what you can, right? Don't make excuses. Don't just do nothing. Do what you can, right? And the stuff that you can't do, hey, you leave that in God's hands. But I want to read one more matter of fact, let's finish reading that out. The thoughts of the diligent, right? We gave you the definition of thoughts and diligent. So this is the ideas of those that are persevering, right? The thoughts of the diligent tend only to plenteous. That word tend means lead. It says it leads only to plenteous. Like when you have an idea and you are diligent behind that idea, it's going to lead to plenteous. There's no way on God's green earth that you're going to plant these seeds and do something and just nothing's going to happen. That's just not the way God created it, right? Sometimes it may take time, because some people, they say, oh, nothing's happening. But then you'll have somebody that's doing the same thing you're doing with a testimony that it took them 5 years, 3 years, 6 years. When we look at David, when we look at Joseph, it took years for them to get to these places that we preach about, right? So everything takes time, and it doesn't mean it's not working. It just may not be the time. But guess what? While you're waiting, you have to keep on planning. You have to get busy. Stay busy, right? We love to read those stories in the Bible. We love to hear about Ruth. We love to hear about David. We love to hear about Joseph being second, ruler of all Egypt and all these different things. But what about the process that they went through? When we look at Joseph, when we look at David, they were consistent at what it was that they were supposed to be doing. When we look at Ruth and we talk about that story, she was in the fields working. She was doing what it is that she had to do, right? She wasn't paying attention to no other things that was going on around us. We love them stories, but for some reason, some of us don't like living those stories. It's going to take work, guys, and you got to get busy. It says the thoughts of the diligent tend only to plenteous, but of everyone, listen to this, but of everyone that is hasty. That word hasty means hurry, to move fast, careless. How can you be careless? By not doing anything at all. Some of us move fast, right? Some of us, God says, listen, take your time, but we're trying to find ways to jump and get it done quicker. So hurry, to move fast, careless, reckless. Some of us are reckless with our purpose by not doing anything. Once again, impatient, right? So he says, but of everyone that are all of these things, only to want. It's only going to lead to want. And for some of us, this is not everybody. This message of don't be mad or don't get mad, get busy is not to everybody, because everybody isn't mad about what somebody else is doing. But on the other hand, some of us are just not doing anything. So this is still a message for you, right? You may not be envying somebody or jealous of somebody or bad mouthing somebody for what they're doing, but you are stagnant and not doing anything. So this message is for you as well. These scriptures are for you as well. Last scripture I want to read to you guys, Proverbs 21 and verse 25. It says, the desire, listen to this, the desire to wish or long for, to want, the want of the slothful killeth him. The word slothful is lazy, idle, inactive, lifeless. So if you're out here operating like you don't have no life, if you are out here and you are inactive, it says that your wants, the things you're talking about, everything you want. Oh, I want this, I want that. You know, whether that's spiritual or natural, whether that's you want to be this in God, or you want to drive this or have this. Listen, you can have all of those wants you want. But if you are slothful, if you're lazy, idle, inactive, lifeless, it's going to kill you. And it reminds us of that double mind, right? Of where I say I want this, but I'm doing this and it's driving me crazy. Here it says that the slothful person is going to kill you to want all those things, but yet not to be moving towards those things. That's going to kill you. You know, it's going to not only drive you crazy, but it's going to put you in an early grave if you're not possible, or kill you spiritually, right? We got people out here that are spiritually dead. They walking around, but they're spiritually dead. They've given up hope on life. And a lot of times they'll blame God and they'll blame their mother, their father. This wasn't right for me. I grew up this way. No, nobody can stop you from doing what it is you're supposed to do but you. That's just the way God made it. He didn't make it where people could just stop you from doing what it is that they don't want you to do. No, only you can stop yourself, because if they hinder you here, a door will open over here, as long as you have the will to keep on pressing and to stay busy. It says, the desire of the slothful killeth him, for his hands refuse to labor. And I'm getting ready to close out this podcast. If that is you, if your hands refuse to labor, then you are getting exactly what it is that you are supposed to have. If you are somebody that is just sitting back and upset with what everybody else is doing and just commenting on videos to just be mean, then you are getting exactly what it is that you are planning. Listen, you have to get busy, guys. You have to put your hands to something. And this message has nothing to do with money, right? Like I said earlier, money may be incorporated in that. There may be some money come from whatever it is that you're going to do, but this is more of a spiritual message, right? Because when you do what it is that you are supposed to do, that you are meant to do, that you are born to do, it's going to bring you a joy and a peace. There are stories, and this is confirmation of why it's not about money. There are stories of people that have left big money to do the thing that was in their heart to do. I remember there was a lady that was making tons of money in the United States, left it all behind to do mission work in another country. There was a guy, I believe, out west, where he shared what he made per year. He divvied it up amongst all his employees so everybody could experience what it was to make a good salary. That was his purpose. That was something that was heavy on his heart to do, to be a blessing to somebody else and to see them just as happy as he felt. Brought his own salary down to do that. How many people are willing to do that, right? But this is what I'm talking about. It's not about money. It's about being able to go home and lay down at night and feel like, listen, I did what it is that I was supposed to do. Like, I can lay down with a joy and a peace. I can lay down with a peace of mind. But know that I love you guys. And once again, my message is to you guys, those of you that are out there sitting back, angry, mad, talking crazy, don't get mad, get busy. And for those of you that don't fall under that category, but you aren't doing anything, my message is to you. My message to you is get busy. Know that I love you guys. And until the next time we hop on the podcast together, shalom.